Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Just a few quick announcements before we get started. Reminder that tickets are on sale for our conference. Unfortunately, the early bird special ended on Black Friday, so that deal is over, but there's still plenty of tickets available. It's not until May. I know we're a long ways out yet, but the lodge itself has sold out. There is some camping available on site and, Airbnbs and hotels in town. So make sure you take advantage of that while there's something still available. Also, if you're looking to room with somebody, you can join the Telegram chat that's on the website. JourneyToTruth.online has all the information, tickets, the Telegram, everything you need to know. And if you have any other questions, you can just email us at journeytotruthpodcast.com. So make sure you take advantage of that. Also, we have a Hopewell Farm CBD. If you guys are looking to try a new CBD, we are partnered with Hopewell Farm, and there is a new promo code for that. And I have to look because I didn't memorize it. Let's see if I can. It will save you 15% off. The link is in the description below, and that promo code is I don't know because it's not right here. I'll put it in the description.
It'll be in the
Um,
description. Yeah.
I'll put it in the description, but it saves you 15% off all their products through the end of the year. And it's fantastic CBD. I love it. Highly recommend it.
It's the best, in my
Okay,
opinion.
so it is the best.
Yes.
So let's talk about why we are here. Um, we're bombarded with flat Earth videos all the time. It trends on TikTok. I see it on Instagram, even over on X, Facebook. These groups. Flat Earth Dave is a huge influencer. He's being interviewed by Roseanne Barr now, and now she's catching on to and I'm just like, I feel in my heart that there's something off about that theory. And we can get into all of this. I'm not here, we're not here to like belittle or be condescending towards anybody who believes in the flat earth because I understand that, the flat earth does lead to other truths about our planet and our reality, and it does expand people's minds and it opens people's minds. But
Even
um
if it's not true. Let's,
yeah,
Since
right.
it gets you at least thinking out of the box, even if
That,
you come back later, you're like, oh, that wasn't actually true.
exactly. So um I'll step back for a second, introduce our guest first, and then we can get going. So today we are joined by Bree Divine. She is a fellow Instagrammer. She's on TikTok as well. And, we've just been following each other for a while. And I noticed that she started posting some stuff about flat Earth, and it caught my interest. And it was just very like heart-centered information. Like this is very similar to like my beliefs on surrounding this whole flat Earth theory. And we just started talking, and here we are now. I asked her if she wanted to come on the show and just, discuss what she sees and what she's experienced. And if I'm not mistaken, you've gone down those rabbit holes and you've at least been open to the concept, right? So I'll
Mhm.
turn it over to you, let you introduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll just hit the ground running from there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go by Bree Divine. Divine's my only family name that I recognize. So I went down this path, I guess, when I had a spiritual awakening in 2016. I became more open to other theories that I'm like, okay, I accept that this is my perception of reality is not the only truth. And so I opened up my mind and heard a lot of other theories. And I never really put solid footing down on any one theory until it was 2019 and I was going through my own Reiki attunements. So I'm a Reiki healer. I receive often as well. And during my second attunement, this out of body experience happened. It was triggered without any substance, no warning, no intention to leave my body, but it ended up just happening. And I was in outer space, as we would describe it, as NASA shows us. And I was facing the Earth, and it was indeed spherical in the way that we're shown. And I was with an angel next to me, and this angel was showing me the symbols and hand movements and basically showing me healing the earth. And just the download I received was that our bodies, like we are the earth, like we mirror the earth, the tiniest thing that we can experience or see physically is still, it's like a micro of the macro of planet earth. And that was a truth that just resonated with my entire being. And the beautiful thing that while I was out there, I didn't have my ego with me. And so I didn't really ask why. I didn't have shock. I didn't uh, have anything that ego equips us with. So it was just knowledge that I was shown. And then I went back into my body. And it was really cool because I didn't feel that my faith had been shaken because, again, I didn't have any firm belief. Um, but after seeing that, I still, and it's been what, 5 years since then, and I have still entertained other people's thoughts and theories about flat Earth.
Right. So by entertaining those theories, you've obviously gone down some rabbit holes then, and you kind of, come head to head with some of these other people and their beliefs. What was that like for you, and what was your experience whenever you found yourself debating or having discussions about the flat Earth with these people?
Yeah, I became friends with someone who, is a pretty well-known name in red pill media. And, they were showing me because I described to him what I saw, and he said, well, there could be a couple of things. One, you could have your own programmed thought of what you think it's supposed to look like. And then that was shown to you when you were in your out of body experience. And then you said, well, it could also be maybe what you saw was a dome and it appeared spherical because you probably saw the toroidal field that we all have. And the toroidal field creates a spherical shape. And so the rabbit hole I went down with this guy was basically these like different levels. There's like inner earth, I guess, and whatever. There are these like different levels, and then it's like within a dome. And so it can appear from the outside looking in a spherical image, so we can be confused. But I assure you, there's no confusion with what I saw.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I experienced the same thing on a mushroom journey. I eventually left the planet at some point, and I looked back at the Earth, and it was amazing seeing it. But it never even occurred to me that I wasn't thinking flat Earth, round Earth, or anything like that until after the trip, the journey. And I thought about it. I'm like, oh yeah, it looked very much like we would imagine, except it probably wasn't a perfect globe, if anything. But um, it was from in that journey, I started off in what I would call the hell realms and made my way all the way to source. And I was like shown the very fabric of reality and the mechanics of the universe, how these trips can be sometimes. And all the way, to the role like the ascended masters are playing and the light language and the like coding, the keys and codes that make up the holographic universe and all this stuff. And I was just getting like this tour of the universe. And not once did I see a flat planet. And I saw other planets too, because I was interested in Venus and like all this. It was a whole thing. But it was spherical, right? And you said you just felt that you were one with the planet. Well, this is really interesting. I had a friend of mine's son who, we were on our way. This was in construction days, and we were on our way to a job, and he's one that likes to smoke a lot of weed and stuff back then, and he was just like in the passenger seat smoking, and we were talking about flat Earth, and he's like, man, he goes, I'm not into a bunch of conspiracy theories, but he's like, I feel like I'm so connected to this planet that my soul gets offended when people try to tell me that the earth is flat. And it was such a thing to say, when you're in that moment, but I felt him when he said it. He's like, my soul gets offended when I hear it. And I think that's what we're experiencing because if you're connected with this planet and you're operating from a heart space, you just see it and feel it. It almost makes you sick when you see it because it is an
Yeah.
inverted truth,
It's a lie. And
right?
truth has a frequency and you can feel truth. And when something's that much of an inversion of the truth, you can absolutely feel that. And
Right,
it does feel like a sick feeling. It's like,
right.
ooh, that's way off. That's something's way wrong here. Right.
I agree. I'd like to add that with truth, you can say, I know this is true, But with a theory, you're trying to convince other people that something is true while trying to convince yourself because you are
Right.
more afraid of being wrong at this point.
It's all about your ego, right?
Yeah.
Your ego has to be right, and that's where it becomes like a religion, because the dogmatic aspect of religions is all tied to ego, because it's all about I'm right, you're wrong, I'm righteous, you're not, I have the truth, you don't, and it's all about like this ego building up, putting your ego on this pedestal, right? And that's what I see like flat earth, like 90% or more of the hardcore flat earthers are these like people like that. It's like they're these religious zealots of flat earth, and they go around, that's all they ever talk about, that's all they ever talk about. And then they troll us in the chat, they go in your chats and call you an idiot if you believe in the round earth and you're a globetard. And um you look on their like Facebook or whatever social media feeds, and every single post is about flat earth, flat earth, flat earth. Why you're
Well,
an idiot if you believe the globe earth, why
right.
it's so easily debunked in a million ways. Which is funny because I can easily, I've actually researched it honestly and openly, like trying to put aside any biases, being like, let me look into this. I did it years ago, because I came across Flat Earth Dave actually back then, back in like 2013, I want to say, on YouTube. And before that, like I had not seen a single flat earth. Like it was like 2013, 2014. It was the first I ever really started seeing it get out there. But before that, in the whole spiritual community and truther community, all of it, disclosure community, flat earth wasn't even really a thing at all before that. So that's another way you can tell it's like a pushed psyop kind of a thing. It just kind of pops up out of nowhere, and all of a sudden all these people are talking about it out of nowhere in the
Right.
last 11-ish years. And that before
Right.
that, it's like nothing. But I
Right.
looked into it and I'm like, ooh, there were some good points made, in some of these YouTube videos and thing. But then I was able to debunk those, and I was able to, I was like, oh, okay. They're like using these straw man arguments, and they're using these fake kind of like proofs, and they're using
Right.
like passages out of the Bible that say the firmament as if it's like a literal dome. Like, oh, that's proof that there's a literal dome, and all these things that on a surface level can seem like very convincing, but when you really look deeper than that, it does not hold water at all, and it's easily debunked, actually.
Right. Did you have any thoughts on that,
Sorry,
Bree,
that's
before
some
we? No, it was great.
soapbox there.
Well, yeah, as Aaron was speaking, I'm thinking about what flat earthers would say. They would say, like, okay, so then you believe the enemy, NASA, like
Right.
they're lying to us. So you're on their side.
No,
And
that is not what.
no, yeah, not at all. Because I think the majority of us have probably been led to these uncoverings because we have experienced some form of narcissistic abuse. And so we are aware of certain patterns. And what a narcissist does is they use like a very good, strong platform of truth so that they can get you to feel safe with them. And that's where they control your perception. So I think it would be very difficult for a major narcissist, if we're saying that that's what NASA is, to completely do like a total opposite of the truth and then try to deceive you. I would think that they're a little bit smarter than that, or that I believe I know the intelligence of a narcissist well enough to know that they can really deceive us if they start us off the right foot with pretty firm grounding in truth, which would be a spherical earth.
Right. And it's
Right.
interesting about the narcissist. We've said this before on the channel. Like people ask, like, how do you identify, infiltrators in the community or whatever? And I ultimately came to the answer that learn how to identify a narcissist, and you'll know the people who are susceptible to manipulation. And that's what's happening here. And the people who are power hungry and they're in their ego and they want the big platforms and they want to feed off of their audience, they're gonna go with the trend. And let's talk about the trend. So flat earth is allowed to trend on TikTok in particular. I always see it trending, but all the other, like I've had my channel permabanned. Aaron's lost his channel. You lost a channel, did you not, Bree?
I did lose my TikTok.
Right. And you had
Yeah.
a large following, didn't you?
Yeah, 83,000 followers.
Right. So
Wow.
I mean, I think that is the telltale sign. That's the red flag. Why is it allowed to trend while the other truths are censored and suppressed? I
And
mean,
pushed
somebody,
to the forefront, not just allowed, but like pushed to the forefront,
right.
what it seems like.
Yeah, yeah. So, I
Intention.
mean,
Yeah.
have you seen that over on TikTok and other platforms, Bree?
Oh yeah, I'm seeing flat Earth narrative all over the place. And I speak about this as gently as I can because I have close friends who I love and respect who are highly intelligent and are free thinkers. And they are pretty much convinced that the earth is flat. And so I receive TikToks from them. So, it's like my For You page kind of fills
Right,
up because it's what I'm looking at, people sending me things. And, but yeah, those accounts don't get shut down over there.
right.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm gonna actually take this opportunity to play a quick video from our friend Daryl, which we've shared many a times, but just for the context of this video and people who may not have seen this, this is a Navy whistleblower, Daryl James. He was a CB in the Navy in, I think, 99 to 2004, and he was stationed at St. Maug in England, Royal Air Force Base, Cornwall, England. And his executive officer shared this with him. I won't explain it. I'll just play the video here. Um, and it's pretty telling. If this is true, which I feel that it is, it makes a lot of sense. And then we'll actually go into, what the PSYOP actually, like the psychology behind the PSYOP. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yep.
I was in United States Navy. I was a CB. I was on a underground base in St. Maug in England when I was made aware by my executive officer, who first name was Robert, about Solar Warden, the United States Navy space program, and I volunteered for the program. And he could see after I got out of the military that I was looking at videos and things like that on the internet. He brought up flat Earth, and he said, if you watch a video of somebody who is talking about flat Earth, they either don't know they're deceiving you, they're being deceived, or they're deceiving you on purpose. He said because flat Earth was a PSYOP, psychological operation, invented by Michael Aquino back in the 80s, who was a psychological operations officer in the Army. They say he's dead now, I'm not sure. But yeah, he was a Satanist. He started the Temple of Set. He was under, Anton LaVey, the Church of Satan. He started out there with Sammy Davis Jr. and all those guys. But yeah, that's what he told me. He told me that it was, like a PSYOP. It was just a way to start, create confusion. I asked him why they did that. And he said, it's just a way to create confusion, which is the Satanist way, like anarchy. I remember what the Earth looked like, too, as far as I remember. It was a toroid, but it kind of looked more like a mix between a donut and a blood cell, in the sense that it was like, it dipped at the top and the bottom like a blood cell, and that's where the poles were, where the ice was, the ice caps. So it dipped a little, and then it went across, and it went like that. And the continents were a lot smaller than you're told, and the oceans were a lot more vast. It was almost like you could see the magnetic field of the Earth kind of pulling the oceans apart. But I remember that part, yeah. It was a toroid.
Okay, so the important part there is that um, we have somebody claiming that the flat Earth was a psyop invented by Michael Aquino, a practicing Satanist who created the Temple of Set, which is a place of worship for Satanism, essentially. And this man allegedly was psychological operations officer, invented the flat Earth theory, and has been pushing this information for decades at this point.
And
Now, what?
real quick, not just him, but the whole cabal satanic elite network that he
Mhm.
is connected to. So he might have been the start of it, but they really picked it up and at least in the last 15-ish years have really pushed it through social media and the internet
Yeah,
to get everyone, as many people as possible, to debunk the truth, because that's what you see all these mainstream headlines and what do they always put? Flat Earth believers or flat Earth people that believe flat Earth. But So it's used to debunk. It's also used as a distraction. It's also used to divide the community. So there's three
Right.
main things, in my opinion, it's used for.
Yeah, and we're going to take this even deeper, like the real psychology behind it. But
Yeah.
people have to remember, first of all, I'll let you comment on that video, Bree. I mean, I don't know if you've seen anything else. Like, I believe you said you haven't seen any other videos claiming that it's a psyop, but what are your thoughts on that?
It makes sense now, and you're correct. I have not seen videos like that. I feel like that would be taken down.
Well, it was on my TikTok, so
And it was taken down, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think that it just makes too much sense, in my opinion, that
Mhm.
video.
Yeah, so okay, now let's think about a PSYOP. If you research the Psychological Operations Division, U.S. Army, or just whatever, I think a number, it's probably not just Army now, but I'm sure that other branches of military and even CIA intelligence agencies definitely, they have divisions where they put out disinformation intentionally. And what that looks like is they have a budget. They get to spend millions of dollars. They can put out fake whistleblower testimonies. They can put out fake documents, fake they make documentaries. They're paid, they're funded to put out information to support your belief. So it is that is, it doesn't matter what it is. That's what that division is designed and paid to do. And I mean, it can literally just be pulled out of thin air. They have a think tank, and people just like, oh, well, yeah, what if we put an ice wall around it? That would be cool, you know? And then like they're creating this narrative, and then they have these, I've seen the whistleblower videos where the people claim to sail through the ice wall. None of them are not an AI voice. They're all AI voice whistleblowers. I'm like, and people are like sharing it, like, this is the truth. This guy made it past the ice wall. Listen to it. And it's an AI voice. I'm like, you can't feel that? Like, people can't feel
Right.
that. And so we
Another
have
fake
to,
proof, just
yeah.
like I was saying.
So the information is out there to support it, but that was placed there intentionally. That's
Mm-hmm.
how a PSYOP works. And that's what I don't think people really understand. And let me pull my screen back up here and see what the chat's doing. Uh, but I know, Bree, like you made a comment on Instagram. You're like, I don't have room and I don't have time to have conversations with people that aren't. I forgot how you worded it. Maybe you can finish that sentence for me. But I found it actually really like empowering because you're setting a healthy boundary.
Yeah, I said I am not willing to entertain having a debate with someone who has not had a similar experience as me, meaning they've seen with their own, third eye or their own eyes, had their own experience of like a testimony of what is true. And I think that it's just poetic because journey to truth. What is truth? Truth is your own perception. That's it. There's literally nothing beyond that. I
Hmm.
can't get someone to see my truth. No one should dare try to get me to see their truth. That's dangerous.
Right.
So, truth sincerely is within. And so, when people put this energy towards trying to not be wrong alone, that's what I call these missionaries
Yeah.
of flat earthers. They just don't want to be
Yeah.
wrong alone.
Right.
So, if you're putting energy towards that, you're running from a truth within, and everyone has the capability to see. You don't even need to have a psychedelic experience. Just like, I mean, just like you, Tyler, with you, it was induced, but so was mine. But it's not like it was induced by something that you took because that medicine was already in you. It was like a natural release. And when that happens, then you unlock, like you can actually see beyond. And everybody has that capability through meditation, stillness, releasing addiction. I I would be really interested to see what addictions these flat earthers have that they're not telling people actually.
Yep. And so that gets
Mm-hmm.
into the target audience for the PSYOP. And this is, I'm going to have to go on a little, my soapbox here just for a second. People have told me or heard me say this before, but I really think if this feels right, I've meditated on it. And after I saw what I saw, it all made sense to me. So what do we have happening on this planet right now? There's a planetary ascension, right? A global ascension. People are ascending into the fifth dimension, the 5D, you could say. What better way to counter the ascension than to trick people into believing in a flat planet, to trick people into their own devolution into a 2D reality where the Earth is flat. So it's maybe, let's just pretend that maybe, there's this Area 51 whistleblower who claimed that we're well aware of multiple dimensions. And what they've been able to see by traversing the dimensions is that planets take different forms in different dimensions. So let's pretend that there is a lower dimension where there is a flat Earth, okay? That doesn't, so maybe that's why those people that you can't argue with them because they're so convinced because that's their reality. Like you said, you can't like that's their truth. But the dangerous thing is it's like the Tron, like Tron the movie, like it our phones, the flat earth information comes from your phone. It comes from your phone. Now, when you're living your world inside this phone, you're living in that Tron 2D reality, right? And that flat earth information is literally devolving people. It's the devolution into the lower dimensions, which is the exact opposite way of the ascension. And if you liken it to a video game, like I like to do, a 2D video game that we remember playing as kids, the side-scrolling games, like let's just say there's a moon on the screen. That moon is a flat disk on the 2D video game. And just through the evolution of the graphics, the games became 3D. And what happened? That flat disk became a sphere in the 3D video game. The same thing happens in our reality. If you go from a 2D reality to a 3D reality, just by the nature of physics alone, it's a spherical planet. It has to be. Everything's a toroid. They just released the first photo of a photon or whatever it was, and it was like a toroid. Everything has that toroidal structure. So, and then beyond that, in 5D, I would argue that we're evolving into more of a holographic universe, or the holographic universe becomes more apparent, meaning that maybe it's not so much physical, but it's still spherical, right? So there's different layers to this. And you can imagine that the video game developers that are creating a 2D video game, the creative frustrations they must have had because they know what they want, they know their vision, but they're limited on creating their vision because they're stuck in that 2D matrix. The same thing happens here. If you are in that 2D matrix, if you're in that second dimension, you're probably signing up for the 15-minute cities, moving towards the cities. You're signing up for the brain chip, whatever, the jab, whatever it looks like. But what you're consenting to is you're telling the control system that I'm I'm giving you permission to create my reality for me because it takes away all of their creative abilities whenever you give your power away like that. So they're allowing their reality to be created for them by the control system. And what does the flat earth ultimately teach us? That we're a prison planet and you can't escape. You're screwed, right? So if we go into the 3D where we can tap into our true potential and become the master manifestors that we are, and the cabal knows that that's why they need us to create their realities for them. But we can create freely in the 3D. So by getting everyone down into a 2D reality, they no longer have those creative abilities, and it's so much easier to control a population because they're just giving their power away. Yeah, they're just like, yeah, give it all to me. I want an easy life, right? Um, and it all comes down to mind control and parasites, which is a whole other layer to this conversation. And I can see energy sometimes. And when I was watching Flat Earth Dave on Roseanne, I got sick. I had to turn it off because I saw like an overlay of a parasite. I'm like, oh, he's infested with parasites. And the parasites create parasitic thought forms, and that's what was actually driving his theories. He doesn't even understand that his thoughts aren't his own anymore. So if you want to clear up clear yourself up, do a parasite cleanse, and then you'll know like where you stand. But if you're not doing anything to work on yourself, you're gonna be used as a puppet to push these false narratives. The end.
Well said.
Um,
I have a little bit of of a perspective to add to that as well. Everything you said, I totally agree with, is spot on. And I think another thing the flat Earth thing kind of does, because it's almost like it's the model of it. If you think about it, it's like a prison. It's like we're all trapped in this dome and this prison surrounded by an ice wall. You're trapped, and that's what they want us to believe, right? They don't want you to believe you're a divine sovereign being that is not a slave. You're only a slave if you think you are, and if you give your power away to a slave system, which is what we've been tricked as a collective into doing for a long time. Well, we're waking up now. That's a huge threat to the slave system, so they're trying desperately to throw everything they have at us, and most of that is psychological and spiritual warfare. And they're trying to get us to buy back into being a slave again. Those of us that are thinking outside of the boxes, they're like, okay, well, here's our PSYOP we're going to give them to get them to buy into a different type of slave system, but it's still a slave. Like, oh, you're trapped in this dome in this flat Earth, and you need some external savior to save you to break out of that. You can't just like leave the flat Earth area, you know.
Right.
So I think that's a big part of it. They want you to think you're trapped. Like sorry, you're trapped in the only way, if you die, maybe you can reincarnate, if they believe in that. A lot of them don't, because they're in the Christian box as well. It's just heaven or hell, and that's it, you know. So there's that, and there's also what was the other thing? I had it and I lost it. Oh yeah, so there's like it's almost like, because it goes hand in hand, like I said, it's like a religion, and then almost everyone I know that's a flat earther is also a very dogmatic, whether it's Christian or whatever. And it's almost like it's just people that are already in that program of giving their power away and not truly becoming sovereign and truly becoming activated spiritually. They're still and just like, oh, I have the correct beliefs, and I need some external savior because I believe the correct things. It's almost like goes hand in hand with that whole program as well, right?
I agree, but I also think that it has so many different tentacles where it reaches people who are searching for a truth once they have left the dogmatic religion.
Yeah.
Right.
I've noticed that people are like, oh no, Bible's not real, the Christian God's not real. They debunk all of that. They're very willing to debunk all those things. But then no, for sure, this is a flat earth though. It's like they've had this really big thing that influenced their upbringing, and then they uproot that and they need to stick something else in that void, or else they're going to go crazy.
You nailed it. And I've talked about this a lot in the past, where people don't actually truly go on an awakening journey. They just jump from one box to another box, and they think, oh, now I have the truth. But really all they did was just change one box for another.
Yeah, with all this like research, which is information on the internet that's been thrown at us to discover.
Well, and also this goes back to the manipulation, right? So how do they do it? They overload you, they overwhelm you with information. They get you in your mind. So they have manipulated you away from your heart and your intuition. And you're no longer able to even tap into that anymore, especially if you're under mind control from all the frequencies and parasites, right? And so you're 100% in your head now. And in your head, a lot of this information makes sense. But if you're not tapping into your body and using it as an antenna, your body is never going to tell you that, like, the red flags, not going to go up, you know?
Right.
Your body is not going to detect the deception frequency that it carries. And it's, you could call it the deception frequency, but I really think that that's what we're looking at here. So if you mind control a population, you get them all addicted to the poisons, you get them infested with parasites, then I mean, you can basically trick them and manipulate them and deceive them into anything.
You're trapped up here.
Yeah,
you're disconnected from your soul. You're disconnected from the deeper elements of who you really are. You're just completely trapped in your mind. And that's what I see going on as well.
Yeah. And I love what you said a minute ago, Bree. That was like spot on about like they need something else to put in that void. And that's like no one's fault, right? Because we're all lost here. We don't know what we're doing. We're all trying to figure it out. But that's why I wanted to do this video, because I feel like this video isn't just about a video on our channel. It's about putting this information out into the collective for people to grab onto, because, you know, there's so much of the counter, right? We have all these flat earth videos going around, and I don't see anybody really putting out globe Earth videos, right? Round Earth, but it seems so silly to have to join that fight whenever you feel, whenever you're in that truth and in your heart, right? But I'm like, okay, I think it's time to throw our hat in the ring here and at least have a discussion about this. We've talked about it before, but we've never had a whole episode, so that's what we're doing. And but you were spot on, Bree, about basically just filling that void. I think that's well said. Well said.
Thanks. It goes with my philosophy of the six perceptions of love. I wrote this philosophy that shows you your evolution of anything, healing, turning a new leaf, new belief system. And it essentially shows you like who your counterpart is. So when you're in there's six phases, and when you're in phase one, your counterpart is a provider. This provider basically programs you from the very beginning. When you learn a new job, you're like, I'm going to copycat everything because I don't want to be the dummy. You're going to do everything perfectly. And you go into phase two, kind of like a toddler's figuring out that they get to interact with the world, start grabbing everything, or you're at your job and you're like, oh, I have a little bit more like freedom. I can contribute here. They're going to hear me and I have a voice. Your counterpart in this phase two is a teacher, like someone who's been in your position, and you have a lot more liberty and freedom. But you can only go into phase two once you've actually dropped the dogma. You're like, oh, I don't need to do exact protocols anymore because I am safe here. It's muscle memory now, and now I can go into phase two. But if you extract yourself from this provider, dependent provider phase without graduating to phase two in a healthy way, like you are going to find yourself again in another dependent phase. And so that explains why people can go from a traumatic, you know, religious extraction. I was Mormon. I went from Mormon into not being Mormon, but I didn't replace it with something else because I didn't have a traumatic breakaway. It really is trauma when you break from phase one, from your provider, from your phase six. You're all alone and you need to fill that void before you can take the next step. And so if people, I feel like people don't really break away from their provider until they have either a sense of uh, not quite sovereignty yet, but that they can contribute with what their environment is. You're like, oh, I can see myself being a manager here, or like someone can trust me here. Like you have more responsibilities, either that or you have a traumatic breakaway and it's due to uh, like betrayal or distrust. And so then you need to replace that trust. And so instead of trusting yourself, because you haven't learned how to do that yet in a safe environment, you're going to find a new provider that you can trust. And so that's also a key indicator for, well, not key indicator. You can recognize patterns in addiction in that way, basically. Like it's they fit the same patterns within phases one and six. So that's kind of like a tangent in my little philosophy.
No,
But
No,
you could keep,
that's so spot on. That's so
yeah,
good.
keep going.
it just
Yeah,
it helps make sense. And so I kind of I saw a little segue to go into this like how to maybe with these patterns. So, you know, those who are, if you're questioning your provider, a safe way to not fall victim of a new provider giving all your trust to them is ask yourself when you meet a new provider, can my truth fit here? Does my truth fit? So let's say I left Mormonism and I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn a new belief system. Does my belief system fit? In the Mormon religion, it doesn't. Because in the Mormon religion, don't you dare ask about a heavenly mother. Don't you dare ask about any questions that we can't give you an answer to. Like, so no, my truth doesn't fit. So then if I find a new provider that I can have some of my own questions answered without any threat, without feeling unsafe, then that's a good place to start. You can safely go into this new phase one and then develop your own interdependence within it. And then you can ask yourself, am I safe At any point, would I be safe to walk away from this? And we all, I'm sure, ask ourselves that every time we get a new job. So let's say like you start a new job and then you're wondering like, how can I progress here? What would happen if I got a new job? Would they all hate me? Do I have to give my 2 weeks notice, or do I work until like the day that I want to leave because they might not give me my paycheck? Like we all start thinking about like, what are the risks of joining this? And so I think it's really responsible for us to be asking these questions when it comes to what we believe in around flat earth or spherical earth. Is it safe for me to include my truth here, especially around the community? Am I going to be berated and laughed at and told that I'm stupid, or told that like is it a healthy environment socially for me here? One way or another, we're going to find that out. And once you feel unsafe or gaslit or pressured, that should be a key indicator that it's time to find a new provider.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said.
Yeah, very well
love
said.
that perspective. Thank you for bringing that into the
Yes.
conversation.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
it's so important. I mean, this is, the psychology behind the side, the really what's happening here, and how, you just provided us you painted a picture, and amazing tools, how you can start viewing this. But, I also noticed that whenever I don't, nobody wants to argue with me about anything, unless it's flat earth. It's like, so this is, and I'm not trying to say like talk down on these people, but what happens is, let's just pretend those people are down in the second dimension, right? And their reality is a 2D reality, or a lower frequency. They haven't gone on that spiritual journey yet, that path of healing and that awakening, like they believe that they actually think they have. So they're going to come at you. They're going to get extremely triggered because they haven't healed those traumas that are creating those triggers. So they get extremely triggered and they come at you. And I've had some of the meanest things said to me from flat earthers, like
And
absolutely disgusting, like putrid energy. I'm like, oh my God, like you would never like come across somebody else who is on a spiritual path that treats somebody like that. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So it's not even, we're talking about an entirely different type of person here. And I'm sorry if anybody's listening to this who's a flat earther. I'm not trying to make you feel bad about yourself, but I'm just trying to highlight what is actually happening here, because we are seeing like knee-jerk reactions to this stuff, and it shouldn't be like that. If you can't have an intelligent discussion, like the truth doesn't need persuading and convincing, it just defends itself. And whenever people feel like they have to convince you and persuade you, and they're like putting the fire out, because if you convince them that they're wrong, then that's their whole reality, because they've attached their identity to that belief. And
right.
that's a big problem when that starts to break down and be dismantled. And people don't know how to respond when that happens. So they play the narcissist, right? And they start criticizing you about things that are completely unrelated to the topic. And that's like their go-to weapon, because they don't know what else to do. But it's easy to look at someone and start physically pointing out flaws or whatever you want, because it just takes a very low level of consciousness to do that. So I really love what you said, and I hope that brought something else to it, because yeah.
Thank you.
And I would say at the end of the day, even if no matter what your beliefs are, or what information you're into, whether it's actually true or not, if it's making you a better person, if it's helping you grow spiritually, if it's helping you to become more loving, all of these things, then it's a tool being used as a good thing. If it's not doing that, it's not a good thing. And unfortunately, not just the flat earth thing, but a lot of things, even let's say, even if they are even correct information technically, or a lot of it's correct technically, just because that doesn't mean, so many people, like you said, they attach their identities to these belief systems and to this information, and it's not making them a better person. It's actually enabling them to keep going down this negative spiral almost, and it becomes like this addiction. It becomes this very unhealthy thing. And it's preventing them actually from growing spiritually and from growing in love and becoming a better it's preventing that. It's like a box keeping them trapped.
Right.
Yeah.
and then they're just spiraling in that negativity, and that negative energy ends up growing instead of a positive energy. It's like the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we can all agree that what you're describing, Aaron, with the negative, is divisive. So negative is divisive, where truth is wholeness, wholesome, holistic. And when I see a division like this, I really like to hear out the side that says yes and. Because when there's a side that says absolutely not, that is false, this is the absolute truth, that's when my antenna goes, and I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
But when I hear someone say yes and, like what Tyler was saying earlier, Tyler was saying there's a yes and here, because
Right.
there could be a two-dimensional, like we're making sense of everybody's perception, two-dimensional and, 5D plus. So it's like, yeah, your truth is true. And there is a higher truth, because that's what higher truth does. Higher truth says yes and. And I don't
Yeah.
hear flat earthers say that.
Right.
You
Well,
expand, you can see things from a higher perspective, whereas like people in these dogmas only see their perspective, and that's all they can see, and everything else
right.
is wrong, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you just nailed it. Star Wars laid it out perfectly for us. Only the Sith deal in absolutes.
Right.
That's a quote from the movie. And the Sith can be, the darkness on the planet, whatever you want that, whatever that looks like in your reality. So when people are dealing in absolutes, there's some form of darkness working through them. And we can take this to the conversation to the level of entities and attachments and alcohol and all this stuff. I mean, it all plays a part in how you navigate your reality. So if you don't have a clean vessel, then you are susceptible to manipulation from all forms, from all over the place, seen and unseen. And I think that's really what we're dealing with here. But yeah, only the Sith deal in absolutes. So exactly, the biggest number one red flag is if when you can't question somebody else's truth, that's the red flag. This is the truth and that's it. Then no, I'm gone. I'm sorry. I'm not going to listen to anything else you have to say. And, it's just one of those things. I feel like if we have these conversations, it helps people identify that within people that they listen to online and start just paying attention. Don't listen to what's coming out of their mouth. Like pay attention to the energy that they're carrying. You can know what they're saying without them even having to open their mouth if you're tuned in energetically. And you could just feel like, oh, like Flat Earth Dave, I like saw that parasitic entity. I'm like, oh, like it made me sick. I'm like, I just don't even, everything he says, I can't listen to that because there's something else driving that. And
And that's a higher level that you're tapped into, rather than just hearing the information, just hearing the words, which is what a lot of people, that's all, they're only hearing the words, and then they're logically going, oh yeah, that makes sense, I'll believe that. Or, oh yeah, that makes sense, I'll go look at some proofs. Oh yeah, look, there's the proofs, it must be true. But they're never tapping in, they're never in that deeper level where
Right.
you're
Because,
like, you're not even using your logical mind, you're at such a deeper, greater level than that you're just automatically sensing. Right.
yeah, because they haven't found that it's beneficial for them to use more than what they can see or hear.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting. So where can people find that thing that you wrote, the six?
The six
Uh,
perceptions.
yeah.
Okay, this is one of those things that can truly only be delivered through this type of expression. I mean, I wrote it, I've tried sharing it as PDFs, and sometimes people like it, but um, it's a little too clinical that way. I really like the application. And so I am very welcoming to all discussions so that I can find a way to see how this applies. So
All
I
right.
think if people are just following me on social media or, yeah, just connected that way, I'll be sharing more through my memoir. I'm releasing it on YouTube soon. It's already written. There's just some producing that is involved is involved with like more people now. And so I don't have a release date. Hopefully by spring is my goal. And the six perceptions is told through storytelling. basically.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the best way to do it. And I anticipate being at events and talking with people, in the crowds, like working with people's uh, own personal situations to help them evolve through the six perceptions. It's really fascinating because it is a set of patterns that can fit with any subject, whether you're falling in love or falling out of love, or you're injured and you're healing like a physical ailment, or writing a book. Like it follows natural laws of evolution for anything that is growing.
Wow, I love
It's
that.
wonderful.
Well, good luck with that, and we'll be on the
Thank
lookout for
you.
sure. And
Thank you.
so let's take the conversation to a different level now. Okay, let's talk about NASA, the ice wall, and that type of stuff. So, for one, Aaron, what's that race you just shared with me? The race where they race around the
Uh,
continent of Antarctica?
I have the photo on my phone. Let me find it.
Yeah,
Don't
find that.
remember.
But so anyway, if we're gonna, for one,
Here it
they've
is.
got okay, that was quick.
Yeah, I got it right. Yeah, that was fast. It is it's really small. Sorry, one second.
Anyway, well, there's a race. There's
There's a
boats.
race. It's
They
it's in French or something. It looks like, so I'm having a hard time. I can't. Yeah, so there's a race that happens every single year apparently where they circle Antarctica. They start out, where is it? So they start out in, is that France? Somewhere in Europe. Somewhere in Europe. They come down, it looks like they circle Antarctica and they come back up. So how do
the
you
boat,
circle an ice wall? Unless
right,
you're trying to say they circle the entire ice wall, which doesn't make any sense
well,
for what this race is. It wouldn't be impossible. So
right. So
every
there's
year it
that.
happens.
It ever happens every year. It's a boat race. They go around. If you want to, the people. I mean, this is Wikipedia, so don't whatever. It's Wikipedia, but still, when you look up the discovery of Antarctica, it says they circumnavigated the continent a couple times to map it out. How do you circumnavigate it, right? And then the same thing with Admiral Byrd in Operation High Jump. They
Admiral
said
Byrd.
his own testimony says that they circumnavigated in two directions and back to basically map out their attack. Um, so you have to like look at the subtleties in the testimonies, and a lot of people think, oh, Admiral Byrd says the land beyond the ice walls, or the land beyond the poles. He says that in the interview. So, and flat earthers run with that interview, but they never taken the time to actually read his diary himself, where he literally says, in his own words, that he flew into a hollow earth and encountered a civilization of German-speaking beings, and an entire inside the planet. And then he came back with a message to humanity, and the Pentagon told him that this never happened, whatever, it's all there. Um,
Mhm.
but that people like, okay, just another example. Like you see the interview and like, oh, look, he said land beyond the poles. That means that there's an ice wall and the earth is flat. Doesn't mean any of that. You
Nope.
filled in the blanks with your
Mhm.
own imagination to make it fit your belief, your narrative. But if you take the time and like, oh, let's read this diary that he's talking about, it literally says that he flew into what he would call hollow earth, and it wasn't the land beyond the poles is inside the planet. And if anyone's interested, we did an entire two-part webinar on inner earth and hollow earth, and we discussed that in depth. And then, do you want to add anything to that before I move on to NASA? No,
You're talking to me or her?
either one of you.
No. No, but I was just going to bring up Admiral Byrd, and you just brought it up. He said he circled the continent. So how do you circle
And
an ice wall again?
right, so and then again, okay, now NASA, everyone's like, oh, the firmament, and we can't penetrate the firmament, and all the NASA footage is fake, which it is. Stanley Kubrick footage, moon landings, it's verified fake for the most part. A lot of the space station stuff, I mean, there's green screens and all these discrepancies in the footage. Why is that? So we're at the end of this video. I'm going to play a video that I put together on The real reason, I forgot what I even called the video, but it's on the alternative story of the moon landings, what actually happened during the moon landings and why we got fake footage. So there was NASA's lying to you, but for completely different reasons. It's not because there's no space and the planet is flat. People are running with that, and NASA's like, okay, great, let them believe that. That's wonderful. Like that makes our job easy, right? Um, NASA, they control the narrative on space. They have for decades, right? And if they were to uncover the truth that, which I believe, and if we're to believe all the secret space program whistleblowers and anybody in ufology who's ever had an experience of being off planet, first of all, the flat Earth theory undermines the entire UFO community and every testimony and everything you've ever heard about anything ever.
Every
It's like,
experiencer, every whistleblower that's been
right.
to other planets, that's been to space, like
But
physically.
so it undermines all that if space isn't fake, space is fake. So
Right.
NASA, I would argue that the bigger cover up is that we have been, we have breakaway civilizations on the moon, Mars, probably other planets, going back to the 40s and 50s from after World War II, the Germans were there first. We know that whole history. I mean, there's literal evidence for that and documents that we can actually put together. And we've done that in our webinars. So they're covering up uh, uh, human trafficking that goes off world. We're talking about like a galactic slave trade because the people that are brought into these programs usually they're abducted and brought into these programs. So if that's the case, I know this is like, this is out there for anybody who's new to this subject, but I really do believe that we have space programs that exist outside of NASA, parallel to NASA, you could say, where we have breakaway civilizations on other planets, things like Solar Warden, like Daryl was literally volunteered for. He signed the papers to join a space program where he was piloting a 4 kilometer long starship. And Gary McKinnon hacked NASA's servers and he found evidence of the non terrestrial officers, the cigar shaped craft. And I mean, that was evidence. And the reason he got away with that is because of the discovery process in a lawsuit in a court, right? The discovery process requires both parties to bring all their information to the table. Well, guess
It
what?
can't
The
happen.
Navy and NASA can't do that without disclosing their own programs. So I think NASA is lying because they're covering up a human trafficking, the galactic slave trade, breakaway civilization, secret space program that has been existing for decades. So they film everything in a studio and give us fake footage because NASA probably doesn't even have jurisdiction in space anymore. They
Yeah.
probably don't even have, they want us to believe that they have a handle on things when they don't have a handle on anything. But that's the dog and pony show that creates the matrix that we've all bought into. And so that I would argue that that's the real reason NASA is lying, not because the Earth is flat.
Bingo.
Anybody?
Anything to add to that?
Okay, you just blew my mind.
Um, I mean, and I tried to really just put it all in a nutshell though,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry, real quick. NASA, yeah, like you said, they just because they create fake stuff and there is a clear cover up going on doesn't automatically prove that the Earth is flat or all that stuff. But that's what they always try to equate. Oh, you're saying you believe that? No, I'm saying they lie about most things, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're automatically lying about the shape of the Earth just because they're they're saying that it's a planet. And, like they can lie about many other things that are way more important than that and still tell the truth about that. There's many other civilizations that you said breakaway civilizations. Well, there's many other civilizations and beings out there that aren't breakaway. They're just ETs and other beings that are all over the place, and not just our solar system, but and beyond, and on our planet actually, and inside the planet. And yeah, they're just a fake space organ. Like they were created to create an official space organization, so no one knew what was really going on. So everyone's looking here. No one's doing any research because this is all that's going on because this is what NASA is saying.
Right. Well, and
What
that
the other
goes
ones are
back
saying.
that goes back to like the provider thing she was talking about. Like you're never like that's your provider. You're not even questioning the authority at that point.
Right.
And we're taught to never question the authority. Listen to the teacher. Do what he says. Do what that, the policeman says when you're a kid.
Don't question it. Just
Yeah,
believe it. Just do it. Right.
exactly. So, um, I was going to say something else about NASA too. And, the whole helium thing, flat earthers claimed it, uh, that, all the satellites are lifted and raised by helium balloons, and that's how they're brought into orbit. That is one way that satellites can be brought into orbit. Again, how does that mean that the Earth is flat, though? And but I would argue too, Patrick Riley, who was a Army veteran, combat medic in the Army for 16 years, we interviewed him, and he said that one of the ways that they bring the craft to space is through helium. That's why NASA actually has stock in helium, because if you can create a craft and you don't need to launch it with a rocket, you can bring it up into the upper atmosphere and with a helium balloon, effectively now you're in space. You do it in the middle of the night in the middle of the ocean, and nobody knows any different. And NASA might be investing in helium for that reason, and not for not because of the Earth is flat. There was
Right.
something else I was going to say. I don't remember now, but did you want to add anything?
And who was the lady, Donna Hare, I think, that worked at NASA, that her job was to airbrush out all the UFOs out of all their footage, and she's been
Yeah.
a whistleblower on that for years. She's like, yeah, that was literally my job, was to get all the UFOs or anything anomalous that's going on out of the footage, because again, that's the real stuff that's going on out in space that they don't want you to know about. But fortunately, a lot of that has leaked through the cracks, and there are many, Richard C. Hoagland does, in the early 90s came out with the book, Monuments of Mars, showing all you can see, these pyramids and obelisks and all these monuments and ruins that are on Mars from, many, many thousands, millions, even years ago. There's ones on the moon as well. There's bases on the moon. There's all kinds of stuff going on, but they need to create a fake, hey, this is all that's going on, nothing to see here, or don't look outside of this, right?
Right.
But again, doesn't prove, people want to jump to these false conclusions, like, oh, that because NASA is lying and they're a controlled organization of the deep state, that means that this is true. It
Right.
doesn't at all.
And have you seen the show The Inside Job, Bree, on Netflix? It's a cartoon.
No.
So it's a cartoon that has like tons of disclosure. Like they're basically telling you, like they're giving you the lowdown on what's really happening on this planet, right?
Yeah.
And every episode will blow your mind. It's like, wow, they're actually telling you, but it's in a cartoon, so it's like they get away with
But
it.
it also seems like they're making fun of it, which
Yeah,
they might be, but it's still disclosing it at the same time.
yeah. Well, that's how they do it. It's like the slide,
Right.
like you make them. It's like a mockery of it, but at the same
Mhm.
time, that's how you get away with it. Oh, people are just going to think we're joking, you know. So
Right.
anyway, there's a whole episode on flat Earth on the Inside Job, and the show is based on the Rand Corporation. If anybody knows the Rand Corporation, like it's about the Rand Corporation, like basically have an underground base where they have think tanks where they basically make decisions for um, the entire world. They basically make it's where they make all the moves for any political decision, any war that we've ever fought, anything. That's what they're doing in the show. And one of the episodes is about the flat Earth. So the guy, he's paid to put out flat Earth information, right? And like this whole flat Earth society gets created in the show. And then finally, at the end of the show, the guy's like, he comes forward and he gets like so fed up and he quits the company and everything. And he goes to his followers and said, guys, it's all made up. We made it up. It's a psyop. It's not real. And they're like, you're lying. You've been compromised. And like they basically hold him to gunpoint and make him sail them to the ice wall. Well, they ended up going into a hole in the poles into the center of the earth. But he didn't like he basically said, guys, it's a psyop. We made it all up. It's not. The earth isn't flat. And they didn't believe him because they had been so programmed that even their own God tells them that no, it's actually not true. They couldn't believe it for themselves, and then they all, sailed into the inner Earth at the end of the episode. Um, I think they're just trying to tell you in plain sight in that episode, and I don't remember which episode it was, but um, you can take that as truth or not. But I really do think that there's something to that.
Wow. It goes to show just the nature of humanity who is on this quest for truth, but they don't have a compass. Their compass isn't set for truth.
Yeah. Interesting. They don't have a
Right.
compass for truth. Yeah,
Yeah.
somebody in the comments just said the inside job is in your face disclosure. Yeah, I would agree. So did you want to take this anywhere else, or should I play this video that we're going to end on?
I just really want to hammer home the message that you'll know. I mean, you touched on this, Tyler. You said like your body will tell you. You will know truth. And Aaron said it's a frequency, like, you can feel it. And just be so cautious, anybody who's listening to this, that you can discern between your emotions that are just needing truth and needing truth to be given to you, and the stillness and peace in your body when you are presented information. If you are thrown out of whack, feel anxious, or even feel a deep sense of validation from something external, you have to question that. But it's when you feel peace and you're in tune with your body, that's when you know that your compass is pointed to truth. Like that's your north, is truth. But you're going to know it in here. Like these two are going to agree. Just
Yeah.
really wanted to make that, like, really wanted to hammer down on that.
No, I love it. I mean, because that's
100%.
ultimately, that's what's important. What were you going to say, Aaron?
I just said 100% spot on.
Right.
That's it.
Right. Okay, so we're going to play a video I made. It tells the story of what happened during the moon landing and why NASA is giving us fake footage. And it really breaks it down. And it's about 15 minutes long. We're just going to let it play out, and then we'll wrap things up after that. The link for the actual video is in the description as well. Also, before we do that, Bree's Instagram link is in the description, so go follow her over there, and TikTok, and she's sharing some great stuff, and we look forward to her 6 Perceptions of Love getting some traction. So
Yeah.
those links are below in the description, but I'm going to go ahead and play this this video we made, and I really would appreciate it. I think it's a great video to share for anyone who is questioning NASA before they jump to the flat Earth conclusion. Like, this is a great video to give them something else, to a new perspective. Like, oh, it doesn't mean the Earth is flat. Maybe this is why. So it's just really to get you to think outside the box and look at it from a new perspective.
And these are very credible whistleblowers in this video, in my opinion.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Both of our opinions. Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of people.
All right, here we go. Sit back and enjoy. Let me. Why is that? There it goes. Hang on. Come on, start over. Excerpt is from Selected by Extraterrestrials. The following excerpt is from Selected by Extraterrestrials Part 1 by former U.S. Navy William Tompkins. The landing module actually impacted the moon's surface in the Sea of Tranquility crater, which had tremendous-sized vehicles parked around its rim. When astronaut Neil Armstrong made that first step for man on the moon, he looked up to the edge of the crater and said to Mission Control, "There are other ships here. They are enormous." The public did not hear that statement or see massive alien starships. Armstrong panned his camera in a 360-degree motional all around the crater, and the CIA then classified the information as way above top secret. Tompkins drew a picture of what he witnessed on the Apollo live feed camera along with other TRW and NASA personnel. The extraterrestrials put up their no trespassing sign, but allowed the U.S. to make several other additional Apollo landings to pick up a few rocks and play in the sand. The action of the extraterrestrials stopped our plans to build our manned naval base on the moon. What Tompkins claims he saw happen via the NASA live feed on the moon landing is consistent with ham radio intercepts of the live feed and the claims of former NASA employee Otto Bender. According to Bender, the Apollo 11 astronauts transmitted that they were being watched by large alien vehicles. Bender confirmed that ham radio operators had indeed intercepted VHF signals transmitted from Apollo 11 to NASA's Houston headquarters with the following message, which NASA screened from the public.
You've heard their comments about, oh my gosh, there are other crafts out here. And so then they describe some of these, okay? And so as you're landing from down behind the crater, these vehicles come up and park. Okay, some of the guys come out and they stand there underneath on the edge of the crater. So we got two guys here and another guy still going around the planet up there, which he has to get back into. And they're doing their thing. Well, again, they didn't put the flag up first. They put up a Freemason flag, and then they got this great Freemason plaque, which they put down, and the Freemasons take over the moon, right? Okay, that's what the plaque is for.
With these reptilians watching?
Yeah. And so
not
now, then they put the American flag up, okay? And then they start walking around taking their pictures. And all around the edge of the crater are all these great big things, which are his statement, Armstrong. Sir, you've got to see these. They're massive. They're threatening. They're threatening us. Remember, we had sent up vehicles with cameras on them to go around the moon to try to figure out, all of the requirements, not only for the selection of where the landing was going to be, but try to come up with some sort of a feel of what our situation was going to be when we got there. Okay, so that's all been going on before. So we have seen and we have photographed structures on the other side of the moon. And next to those structures, a ways away, are foundations of many different buildings that are there. So we've already photographed. We knew that. So we knew there were facilities on the backside. We knew a whole lot that people didn't talk about. But we were in a position where this moon is not a moon, okay? It's not your moon in the first place. Actually, this is not your planet. This is their laboratory, okay?
Right. Okay, the Dracos, you mean, or the reptilians?
Draco reptilian / reptilian. These groups of extraterrestrial who work together but are at war with other extraterrestrials, okay, have these vehicles that look like a planet.
Right. Like
our moon is a vehicle. It's a command center for this arm. There's 4 arms on our galaxy. One of those arms has a place here which is called planet Earth. You're not downtown where all the action is in the galaxy. You're out here. Those guys control your planet, your moon, because your moon is a command center for this region of the galaxy.
When he came back from the moon, where was he? He disappeared. I know where he was. He was in South Dakota with his brother, with the oil rigs they had. And they sold everything out before 1980, so they missed the big bust. Made a lot of money. So Neil came back with his brother, and then Neil went to teach mathematics at the University of Cincinnati in Lebanon, Ohio. And that's where he was until he retired. He didn't disappear, he just went to teach. So a lot of students had Neil Armstrong as a professor in mathematics. There's just strange things about the whole thing. I was in the backyard canning, as usual. Neil came back there. And finally I just turned around to Neil, asked him about a few things. And finally I just got a little annoyed with him, I guess. Because I kind of barked at him. I said, what is wrong with you? You and Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins, you three should be on the ceiling. Out of 8 billion people, you got to go to the moon, walk on it, kick rocks around. And you come back here and you're nothing but sad and depressed. What the hell happened up there? And then Neil looked strange and he says, there's things happened, I just can't tell you. I said, like what? Come on, tell me, something happened up there. Because why are you so depressed? Is it because you're forced to tell a lie or something? He had a nerve on the head, that one. And he said, there's things I just can't tell you. I said, well, I'm hearing rumors. I said, is there anything to something about a rim of a crater and there was other people there? And he said, can't really tell you about that. So there was people there. I said, well, how many were there? And I don't know, he just clam up. And he wanted to tell you, but he couldn't tell you. I don't know what they threatened him with, but it must have been pretty bad. But then about 4 days ago from this day, last week, I get a call out of the blue from this woman who says she has the original photos from the moon camera, and she's got the original Polaroid paper, 8x10. I'm like, damn, that's the original print. And she said, let me email them to you. So she emailed them to me. And this one came up, picture of a big rim crater. It's dark. Now on the picture I have from NASA, it's just black in the shadow. But the picture that this woman sent, the same exact picture, but it's not black in the crater. You expand the photo, open all the way it can go, and sure enough, there is setting another lunar rover. And it's not ours because the picture's being taken from the lunar rover. You can see the fenders and the arm in the foreground of the camera. Across the crater on the other rim, there's another lunar rover sitting there. And it's got 2 wheels, an antenna coming out of the center of it, and a steering column on the right-hand side. And a guy leaning, a man or woman, bipedal anthropoid in a spacesuit, leaning against the lunar rover in the middle of it, you know, just pointing at us. And I went, well, who's that? And so I never got to ask Neil about that photo because he's gone. And he's been dead for a while. And but he had described the photo to me, and as I looked the way he described it, I found everything he was talking about. So there was somebody else there. I don't know who they were. I don't know what they wanted. I don't know how many there were. I saw one. Had to be more than one because of the big lunar rover that had several seats.
But from his demeanor and responses to your questions, you were convinced that he saw something on the moon but wasn't allowed to talk about it.
That's exactly right. That's why he was so depressed. Him and Buzz Aldrin and Mike Collins, they were depressed. And these 3 men of all people on the earth, they should be the happiest men on earth because they got to go to the moon. I mean, my God, what an honor. And here they're staring at the floor moping, you know, just depressed. I went, the hell's wrong with you people? So something happened. I got about as much story as you're going to get straight from the horse's mouth. But that horse ain't going to talk.
One of the last things that I will reveal, and that is definitely a fact, and that I have been briefed on, and that many other people involved with the Black Op community have been briefed on, and that is our own moon, which does in fact have alien bases on it, and also has bases from our own government. Now, there is an ET presence, which is primarily located on the dark side of the moon. The Apollo program was in all actuality a reconnaissance mission, so that we could research what was exactly there and who. You will notice that many of the photos from the Apollo missions have airbrushed out buildings and bases, and this is the truth of the matter. About half of the video that you will see that is documented from the Apollo missions was in fact shot here on Earth at Area 51. In fact, if you look at satellite imagery, you can actually see what's left of a crater field created at Area 51 that was used in the filming. Now, the truth is that most of the footage from the moon was simply cluttered with bases, with alien buildings, and from what one astronaut said, and I'm quoting, what were a constant presence of alien vehicles flying over the surface, cluttering up the footage. So again, they showed the American people what they could and recreated the rest here on Earth that they couldn't show. From what we know, the dark side of the moon is where most of the alien presence is located. It's a more primitive alien race from what we can see, and our research tells us. It's more primitive than the alien beings you would see on higher dimensions, but still thousands, if not millions of years ahead of us. Now we have our own bases, which are primarily located in or near the Sea of Tranquility, which is the site of Apollo 11. And also one base that I know of located near the crater Sabine D. To this day, we're still sending secret missions to and from the moon. However, I do not know the complete details of what we are doing there.
It was 1965. I believe it was about June or July of 1965, sometime in that time frame. I was asked to go over to this facility on Langley Air Force Base where the NSA was bringing in the information from the lunar orbiter. And so I packed up some tools, I went over, I went into the facility. As I approached the facility, it was very lightly guarded. I mean, the base was under high security at any rate. I was surprised that there wasn't a higher level of security outside of the facility as I look back on it later. I went into the facility, I gave them my low-level security badge, they gave me a higher-level security badge. A couple of officers took me into this hangar. It was a very large hangar. As I walked in, there were people from other countries, a lot of foreign people from other countries in civilian clothes, with interpreters with them, with security badges hanging around their neck. And the first thing I thought to myself, if this is NASA, what are all these foreigners doing here? What are all these people from other countries speaking other language? Didn't make any sense to me. And I was really quite impressed with that. It just didn't grok. I was, what are all of these people doing here? And they were very quiet, very reserved, and there was a very peculiar pall hanging over them. They had a very concerned demeanor. Okay. So they took me into this laboratory. I took a look at the equipment. There was an airman second class in there. I was an airman second class as well. He turned the equipment on and put it through its paces. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. I saw what was going on with it. I said, I need to do some troubleshooting on it. It had little printed circuit boards in it with discrete components at that time. It was before we had integrated circuits. And I said to him, we'll have to take this thing out of the lab if we're going to work on it. We can't work on it in here in the darkroom environment. So he called someone to get some people to come in and move it. It was about the size of a small apartment refrigerator. It wasn't something you could easily move. So everyone left the facility, left the darkroom, except this airman second class and myself, and we're in waiting for someone to come to remove this piece of equipment. So while I'm in there, I said to him, and I'm really fascinated with this process, how did they get the images from the lunar orbiter to the laboratory here? And he went through the whole process describing how the various radio telescopes around the world were linked, and they telemetered the data into Langley Field. And at the time, I didn't know what the real purpose of this darkroom and this operation and this facility was. I thought this was where they were bringing the data in and then releasing the images to the public. I had no idea that there were other issues involved in this facility. So he starts telling me all of this information, and I knew that what we were doing was classified anyway, and that he could only share a certain level of what he was doing with me because of the compartmentalized nature of our jobs. At any rate, he told me how everything worked. He showed me the equipment where the digital information came in, where it was converted to photographic images. They were doing 35 millimeter strips of film at that time, which were then assembled into 18.5 by 11 inch mosaics, they were called. There was a digital signature and a grayscale on every 35 millimeter strip. And those strips were from successive passes around the moon, and they would take and build up a photograph. They would scan one section of the moon, then another and another, and then they would get a larger image. So this mosaic then would be put in that contact printer, and that was then a print that was issued to whomever, the press, the scientist, whatever, wherever that was intended to go. So he was showing me how all this worked, and we walked over to one side of the lab, and he said, by the way, we've discovered a base on the back side of the moon. And I said, whose? What do you mean, whose? He said, yes, we've discovered a base on the back side of the moon. And at that point, I became frightened, and I was a little terrified, thinking to myself that if anybody walks in the room now, I know we're in jeopardy, we're in trouble, because he shouldn't be giving me this information. I was fascinated by it, but I also knew that he was overstepping a boundary that he shouldn't be stepping over. And then he pulled out one of these mosaics and showed this base, which had geometric shapes. There were towers, there were spherical buildings, there were very tall towers, and things that looked somewhat like radar dishes, but they were large structures. So I didn't say any more to him because I was concerned again that somebody was going to come in at any moment, would catch us having this conversation, and we would be in real trouble. I realized that he was telling me this information because he didn't have anybody else to talk to. Now, probably in that laboratory, he was probably one of the few enlisted people, and he was a worker bee. And he had a high-level security clearance, obviously. But he couldn't share that information with anybody else. And in those days, we didn't. When you had your security clearance, you took it seriously. It isn't like today where people don't take these things seriously. We had a different set of morals and ethics and values. That's the way we were raised, and we stayed bound by those agreements.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
so I would love to see Flat Earth Dave's reaction to that video because, I just watched him on the Roseanne podcast, and he straight up said there is no moon. It's a hologram. There's no solid moon. It's fake. It's a projection from some base on Earth. And he's like convincing like Roseanne's audience, like there is no moon. It's a hologram. I would love, like, if that's the case, you have to explain away these guys and so many other people. This is just a small sample of even people we've interviewed and stuff. You have to explain it away. How would a flat earther who's just being non-biased respond to this video? And what are your thoughts on it, Bree?
Well, just like we were saying right before the video started, you can sense what truth feels like. And hearing these testimonies, you can't really argue with that.
Right.
And all that was all information I've never heard before. And there's probably a reason.
Yeah. So, but I love what you said though. Like you feel into it. Like that's why I even put this together. I was like, I believe these guys. And I can, you can debate it all day long, but I'm going based on how I feel about what they're sharing. So, ultimately, you know, that's one explanation for why NASA covers things up. And that's just one explanation. But I think it's a good stepping stone for people who are looking for answers that want to know why NASA's lying. Well, if they watch this video, they're like, okay, I see now there's something else that happened. And it was, maybe we didn't even understand it. They're not, if our government doesn't have control over something, they're going to keep it a secret. They're not going to let us know about it too. Like, okay, guys, let's join hands and figure this out. No, they're going to try and do it on their own. So they're not going to fill us in. And I think that's what we're looking at here. And yeah, I won't keep you guys much longer. Thank you all for tuning in. Did you want any last words from either of you?
No.
No, that was a great video. So I'm so glad I got to see that. Thank you for putting that together.
Yeah, of course. And thank you guys all for joining us tonight. That link for for that video is below in the description. It's also on our Patreon if you want to watch it over there. Yeah, so go ahead and take that, share it with your friends if you'd like, share this video, and make sure you follow us on all of our other platforms. We're back on YouTube, but who knows for how long. We're trying to build audience over on X. We're going to start maybe doing some spaces over there. And if you don't know what the spaces are, it's like an interactive podcast, for lack of a better term, where all of you guys in the chat would actually be able to participate in the conversation. It's just going to be a new element to what we're going to start doing. So go follow us over on X and Telegram and Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. And we love you guys. We can't do this without you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And we're going to go ahead and wrap this up.
Thank you, Tyler and Aaron.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today, Bree. Thank you. And guys, make sure you go and check out her Instagram and her TikTok and all that stuff. And yeah, this was great. I really appreciate you sharing your time with us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Much love, you guys.
Much love.
Bye.
Bye.